Suddenly, he slapped me in the face. The loud slap echoed through the quiet room, and I felt a mix of pain and shame. My face burned, not just from the hit but from the humiliation of being struck by someone I trusted and loved. Ryan's eyes were filled with anger as he stormed out of the house, leaving me there, shocked and heartbroken. I realized then that his violence and betrayal had changed everything forever. Hello, my name is Jessica Adams, and I'm 24 years old. For 6 years, I had been in a relationship with a man I believed was my soulmate, Ryan Miller, who is 25. We got engaged in April 2024, and I was over the moon, envisioning a future filled with love, laughter, and family. Our wedding was set for May 2025, a sentimental date marking the anniversary of when we first met. At that time, I thought my life was falling into place perfectly. Little did I know, I was headed for heartbreak. The excitement of planning our wedding consumed me. In July 2024, I eagerly dove into organizing the details, choosing a beautiful light blue and white theme for our spring ceremony. I spent hours scrolling through Pinterest, creating mood boards, and dreaming about every aspect of our special day. I researched caterers, florists, and venues, sending Ryan my favorite ideas. His responses were always the same: short, dismissive, and uninterested. "Looks good," he'd say, or just send a simple thumbs-up emoji. I convinced myself that he was just busy with work, and that he wanted me to have free rein to create my dream wedding. But deep down, I should have seen the signs that something was wrong. Ryan's lack of involvement wasn't just about the wedding. His mother, Karen Miller, was a constant presence in our relationship. Ryan was an only child, and Karen had always been deeply involved in his life. At first, I admired how close they were, thinking it was a sign of his caring and family-oriented nature. But as time passed, I realized how suffocating her influence was. Ryan called her multiple times a day, seeking her advice on every little thing, from what he should eat for lunch to decisions that should have been between the two of us. He would consult her before talking to me, and I often felt like a third wheel in my own relationship. It should have been obvious that I was competing with his mother for his attention, but I kept telling myself it would get better. I believed that once we got married, he would finally put our relationship first. I couldn't have been more wrong. 2 weeks ago, I had a day I had been looking forward to for years: wedding dress shopping with my mom and sister. It was supposed to be a magical experience, one I would remember fondly forever. We visited several boutiques, trying on dress after dress, and then I found the one. It was an exquisite gown, elegant and timeless, that made me feel like a princess. Tears filled my eyes as I stood in front of the mirror, imagining myself walking down the aisle. My mom and sister admired how beautiful I looked, their faces glowing with joy. I couldn't wait to share this moment with Ryan. I sent him a picture of me in the dress, hoping he'd share my excitement. He replied, "It looks beautiful," and for a brief moment, I felt a wave of happiness wash over me. I didn't realize then that he had immediately shown the photo to his mother, setting off a chain of events that would turn my dream day into a nightmare. Karen, my future mother-in-law, saw the dress and was furious. She called me repeatedly while I was still out, but I didn't answer, thinking it could wait. When I got home later that day, feeling elated and full of hope, I was met with an entirely different reality. Karen had let herself into our house using the spare key we had given her for emergencies. She was sitting on our couch, waiting for me, her face twisted with anger. The happiness I had felt vanished in an instant. Karen stood up as soon as I walked in, and her voice was sharp and accusing. "You lied to me," she shouted. Confused and taken aback, I asked her what she meant. According to her, I had promised years ago to wear her old wedding dress, a dress that was not only outdated but honestly looked like it belonged in a museum. I was stunned. I had no recollection of making such a promise, and even if I had made a polite remark years ago, it wasn't a binding agreement. But Karen didn't care about my explanation. She called me a liar and said I didn't deserve to marry her son. Her words cut deep, and I was left standing there, shocked and hurt. I kept looking around for Ryan, hoping he would show up and defend me, but he was nowhere to be found. I tried to reason with Karen, but she refused to listen. Her voice grew louder, and her accusations became harsher. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked to my room, feeling humiliated and defeated. Even with the door closed, I could still hear her shouting. After what felt like an eternity, I finally heard the front door slam. Moments later, Ryan came into our room, acting as though he had no idea what had happened. He asked me why his mother was so upset, as if he hadn't heard her yelling from wherever he'd been hiding. I felt a surge of frustration and disbelief. I explained everything, hoping he would take my side and comfort me. But instead, he sighed and started defending his mother. Ryan claimed that when we first started dating 6 years ago, I had admired his mother's dress and said I'd love to wear it. Maybe I had made a polite comment back then, but to promise I'd actually wear it on my wedding day? Absolutely not. Still, Ryan insisted that I was being unreasonable and that his mother had a right to feel hurt. I went to bed that night feeling completely alone, my heart heavy with disappointment. That night, I lay in bed, replaying every detail of the argument and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The man I had loved and trusted for 6 years had chosen to stand by his mother, even when she was clearly in the wrong. I tossed and turned, feeling a growing sense of unease and heartbreak. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the times I had put his family's needs before mine, and for what? To be treated like a liar and an outsider in my own relationship? The next morning, I woke up to an avalanche of text messages from Karen. Each one felt like a dagger, filled with accusations and insults. She called me selfish and ungrateful, saying I wasn't worthy of marrying her precious son. Tears stung my eyes as I read through her hateful words. I couldn't believe that someone I had tried so hard to please could turn on me like this. I showed the messages to Ryan, hoping he would see how hurtful and cruel his mother was being. But instead of supporting me, he brushed it off. "She's probably just hurt that you don't want to wear her dress," he said dismissively. "Just give her some time to calm down." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen wasn't just hurt. She was actively trying to sabotage our engagement and paint me as the villain. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. It wasn't about the dress anymore. It was about respect and support. It was about having a partner who would stand up for me, who would put our relationship first. And it was painfully clear that Ryan was not that partner. I tried to make him understand. I explained that this was our wedding and that I should feel beautiful and comfortable in the dress I chose. I even suggested several compromises, like wearing a piece of Karen's jewelry or incorporating some fabric from her dress into my veil. But none of it was good enough. Ryan remained stubborn, insisting that I wear the entire dress or risk being seen as ungrateful. It was all or nothing for him and his mother, and I was starting to feel like there was no place for me in this equation. The days that followed were filled with tension and arguments. Karen continued her campaign against me, sending nasty messages and even reaching out to some of my friends, trying to turn them against me. Ryan did nothing to stop her. In fact, he seemed to agree with her more and more, making me feel like I was the problem, the unreasonable one. I felt like I was losing my mind, like I was the crazy one for wanting to wear my own dress on my wedding day. Then came the moment that shattered everything. The tension between Ryan and me had reached a breaking point. I knew we needed to have a serious conversation, one that would determine whether our relationship was even worth saving. I waited until he got home one evening, determined to make him see my side. We sat in the living room, and I poured my heart out, explaining how hurt I was, how unsupported I felt, and how his mother's constant interference was destroying us. I reminded him that this was supposed to be our wedding, not an opportunity for his mother to relive her glory days. But instead of listening, Ryan grew defensive. "You're overreacting," he snapped. "This is about family, and the wedding isn't just for us. It's for them too." His words felt like a slap in the face, and I realized just how deep his loyalty to his mother ran. I tried to stay calm, but the frustration boiled over. I asked him, "Ryan, are you marrying me or your mother? Because it feels like you're more committed to her than to us." That question set him off. His face twisted in anger, and he started shouting, accusing me of being selfish and making a big deal out of nothing. I felt my heart breaking all over again. I told him that I was seriously reconsidering our engagement and that I couldn't marry someone who wouldn't stand up for me. He dismissed my concerns, acting as though I was throwing a tantrum. His indifference hurt more than I could describe. I tried to walk away, hoping to end the argument before it got worse. But that's when everything escalated. Ryan grabbed my arm, spun me around, and slapped me across the face. The impact was shocking, leaving a burning pain on my cheek and a sense of utter betrayal in my heart. I couldn't believe it. He had actually hit me. The man I thought I would spend my life with had resorted to violence. Tears filled my eyes, and I stood there stunned as he stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him and retreating to his mother's side once again. I felt broken and numb. The physical pain of the slap was nothing compared to the emotional devastation. This was the final line he had crossed, and there was no going back. I knew then that I had to protect myself. I grabbed my phone and called my sister, Lauren. She came over immediately, horrified when she saw the red mark on my cheek. Her eyes burned with anger and concern, and she wrapped me in a protective hug. "You're coming with me," Lauren said firmly. Together, we packed a bag for me. I knew I couldn't stay in that house another second. My relationship with Ryan was over, and I needed to make sure he never hurt me again. As we left, I felt a mixture of relief and heartbreak, but I knew I was doing the right thing. The next morning, I knew it had to be done. With Lauren by my side, I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order against Ryan. I provided photos of the red mark on my cheek and the messages from Karen that documented the toxic behavior I had endured for so long. The process was both empowering and heartbreaking. It felt surreal to be taking such drastic measures against someone I had once loved deeply, but I knew I had to protect myself. Once the paperwork was filed, I made the difficult but necessary calls to cancel the wedding. I reached out to the venue, explaining the situation, and to my surprise, they were understanding and compassionate. They allowed me to transfer the deposit to another event, which I decided to use for an early birthday party. It felt good to turn something painful into a celebration of my newfound freedom and strength. The caterer, however, was less accommodating, and I ended up losing part of the money. But at that point, I was just relieved to be free of the wedding drama. The engagement ring, a symbol that had once held so much hope, felt like a heavy burden. Ryan had refused to take it back, claiming it was a gift. I didn't want to keep it, so I decided to sell it and donate the proceeds to a domestic violence shelter. It was a small way to turn something painful into something meaningful, and it gave me a sense of closure. Despite the restraining order, Karen wasn't done trying to control the narrative. She launched a smear campaign against me, using every social media platform she could to spread lies. She called me a selfish, ungrateful bride who had broken her son's heart, and even reached out to some of my family members, hoping they would take her side. But my family and true friends saw through her manipulations and stood firmly by me. It was comforting to know that I had people in my corner who believed in me and supported my decision. Ryan, on the other hand, was a mess. He swung between begging for forgiveness and blaming me for everything that had happened. He showed up unannounced at my new apartment one evening, tears streaming down his face, pleading with me to take him back. The sight of him, once so familiar and now so unwelcome, made my skin crawl. I had to threaten to call the police before he finally left, and it only solidified my resolve. There was no turning back. To find peace and move forward, I leaned heavily on my support system. My parents, who had been furious when they learned about everything, helped me move the last of my belongings out of the apartment I had shared with Ryan. They also offered to cover any legal fees I might need, reminding me that I was not alone. Some of my friends were incredibly supportive, but there were a few who couldn't understand why I hadn't just worn the dress to keep the peace. Those friendships became strained, but in the end, I realized it was for the best. This experience had shown me who my true friends were. As the weeks passed, I slowly started to rebuild my life. The early birthday party I had thrown at what would have been our wedding venue turned out to be a beautiful celebration. Surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported me, I laughed and danced, feeling a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The joy and laughter that filled the room were a reminder of the strength I had gained and the freedom I had fought for. It was a day I would never forget, not because of the pain that had led up to it, but because of the healing and happiness that followed. Lauren and I also made the most of what was supposed to be my honeymoon trip. We traveled to Paris, a destination I had always dreamed of visiting, and turned it into an unforgettable sister adventure. We explored the streets of the city, indulged in French cuisine, and shared deep conversations that made me feel whole again. It wasn't the romantic escape I had once envisioned, but it was exactly what I needed. A trip that celebrated love and resilience in a different, but equally meaningful way. Back home, I focused on healing. I started going to therapy, where I unpacked the emotional scars from my relationship with Ryan. It was hard to confront the red flags I had ignored, the compromises I had made, and the self-worth I had lost along the way. But each session helped me understand myself better and taught me to trust my instincts. It also gave me the tools to set boundaries and recognize my own value, ensuring I would never settle for anything less than the respect and love I deserved. Ryan and Karen eventually faded into the background of my life, especially after the restraining order and mutual no-contact agreement were finalized. Ryan's desperate attempts to win me back gradually stopped, and Karen's smear campaign lost steam as people realized the truth. One unexpected message came from Ryan's father, who privately reached out to apologize for everything. He admitted that he understood my decision and wished me the best, a small gesture that meant more than I could have imagined. My family remained my rock throughout it all. My mom and dad, who had been furious about the slap and the abuse I had endured, never wavered in their support. My friends, for the most part, rallied around me, and those who truly cared showed up for me in ways I would always be grateful for. The ones who didn't understand why I had taken a stand drifted away, but that, too, was part of the healing process. I had learned to surround myself only with those who lifted me up. The engagement ring, which had once symbolized a future full of hope, was now a painful reminder of what I had survived. Selling it and donating the money to a domestic violence shelter was one of the most empowering things I had done. It felt like a way to reclaim my power and turn my suffering into something that could help others. People often ask me if I have any regrets. The truth is, I don't. This experience, as painful as it was, taught me some of the most important lessons of my life. I learned to trust myself, to never settle for less than I deserve, and to value my own happiness and well-being. I'm not ready to start dating again, but I know that when I am, I'll approach relationships with a clearer understanding of what I want and need. I'll never ignore red flags again, and I'll always prioritize respect and partnership over anything else. For now, I'm content focusing on myself. I've started pursuing hobbies I had put on hold, spending more time with friends and family, and rediscovering who I am outside of a relationship. I'm stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever thought I could be. And for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely hopeful for what the future holds. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. If this story moved you, made you think, or kept you hooked until the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please consider liking this video to show your support. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more captivating stories. Your comments mean the world to me, so feel free to share your reactions, favorite parts, or any feedback you have.